Hey guys, there are some upcoming class tuning on the weekly reset for tanks, healers, and DPS. So I'm going to quickly go over my general thoughts for this. I'm mostly going to be focused on tanks, so if you're a healer or DPS, yeah, fuck off. Tanks, now that we're all alone, let's talk about some of these changes. So basically, Blizzard said, as we continue to monitor class performance in instance group content as well as PvP, we regularly adjust classes that are over or underperforming. Based on recent data and observations and feedback from players, we intend to make the following adjustments during scheduled weekly maintenance on June 6th. So this is not being hotfixed in, this is coming at the time of recording this 4 days, it's June 2nd, so this should be uploaded soon anyways. But first, Blood Death Knight getting a flat 8% kind of like aura buff, I'm guessing. I might have to actually look at the actual notes for this, but assuming just it's going to be like an aura flat 8%, which is pretty good. The main issue that Blood has been having in keys is mostly its damage, which has kind of always been the case in a lot of senses because they don't have a lot of snap threat. A lot of their damage comes through like Blood Boil, Shattering Bone, Death and Decay, which is obviously you have to have a pretty decent understanding and kind of control over your rotation to really optimize your damage. And even when you're doing so, you're going to fall short of every other DPS. So it's good that they're bringing up the damage a little bit, but they have to be careful because Blood Decay has the most control and agency over its own health, which while a lot of tanks have like mitigation and ways to heal themselves, Blood Death Knights entirely can basically solo packs for days and days and days. So they have to be a little bit careful in not making this too high, because if Blood Death Knights start doing equal damage or, you know, competitive damage with other tanks, we might see a shift in the meta favoring the Blood Death Knight. Regarding the season specifically though, Blood Death Knight lacks in a lot of other areas with things like obviously Afflicted and Incorporeal, some of the new affixes, as well as Entangled. While they can just walk out of the circle, they don't have as much movement and flexibility like other classes do. Obviously, you can like stun immune and stuff like that, or I think you might be able to even AMS it, but they are kind of the one tank along with Warrior that is kind of struggling in terms of that. So Blood Death Knight just buffs across the board. Pretty cool. When we scroll down a little bit, we are seeing some compensation buffs for the Brewmaster nerfs that we saw about 2 weeks ago now. Blizzard basically hotfixed Weapons of Order, kind of our major cooldown, to no longer scale damage on tertiary sources. Things like embellishments, things like trinkets, weapon effects, ring effects, obviously like the Onyx Amulet specifically. So all of that was nerfed. And over the last couple weeks, they've been taking note of just general areas where they feel like Brewmaster could improve, and their compensation buffs are going to be just a flat 3% buff on top of a 10% increase to Rising Sun Kick damage, 30% to Blackout Kick, and 30% to Tiger Palm. The thing that I'm a little concerned about with this is not even concerned, but Tiger Palm is just not a button that we mostly hit, at least from my perspective, in AoE. So in Mythic Plus, which is mostly the form of content I partake in, you're not really Tiger Palming all that often. There are benefits to doing it, but even with the new tier set, there is no real reward for doing that, where it does reward you for using something like Spinning Crane Kick, which is your other kind of like spender / filler spell. So this buff was kind of odd. Maybe it will be a little better in single target. Blackout Kick does cleave, and it has synergy with the tier set, and so does Rising Sun Kick. So we're going to see a little bit more single target damage and just a flat 3% buff. I'm okay with this. You know, I can't really complain about buffs, right? I wish it was a little bit more, but the kind of like specified numbers and abilities are a little intriguing. And last but not least, we have the Protection Warrior. Developer note says Protection Warriors are not currently performing as competitively as we'd like compared to most other tanks in terms of damage and survivability. Now, this is really true. If you look at any kind of like subset of data, you're going to see that Protection Warriors on average are completing much lower keys, have typically less damage, and they're taking more damage than a lot of the other tanks. Or if they're not taking as much damage, they're at least not being able to cover themselves or heal themselves, I should say. So flat across the board, they're getting a flat 8% aura buff similar to Blood Death Knight. On top of that, they're also getting auto attack damage increase, which is fine. I think they need it. They're kind of struggling in single target as well. They're not doubling, they're increasing spell block duration by 50%, which is definitely not even close to double. So spell block duration increased to 30 seconds, was 20. This is a good change. The weird thing about this season is there aren't as many onslaught of magical effects. Obviously, for people who played in Season 1, you probably remember and are scarred from Temple of the Jade Serpent with a lot of those like really heavy magic tank busters, and spell block made warriors basically immune for that duration. Now, there are times where you are taking magic damage, and spell block is valuable in those situations, but there's no like really meaty, insane tank busters that spell block will basically make you immune to, where now it's just an additional DR. I'm gonna have to play with this change. As some of you know who have stopped by my stream, I have been playing Prot Warrior a fair bit this season. I've tanked up to like 18s and 19s on it. It's a fun tank still, but you can really feel that problem in like where its damage is. It doesn't really feel susceptible to a lot of like big hits, but you play any other tank and other tanks are just doing way more damage and have a bunch of group utility. And then their last change here is Thunderlord now causes each enemy hit by Thunderclap to reduce the remaining cooldown of Demoralizing Shot by 1.5 seconds up to 4.5. This was 1 to 3. It used to be 1.5 to 4.5, I think, in Shadowlands. So this is like a reversion of the change that they made to the talent tree. This is fine. This means you're just going to have generally more uptime on Demoralizing Shot, which is great for both damage and for heat, or for mitigation, right? Because Demoralizing Shout, if you're talented into it, will make mobs take more damage, which is pretty cool. So overall, pretty good changes here. Protection Warrior struggles the same way that DK does this season, though, is that they lack that kind of group utility to handle things like Afflicted, Incorporeal. Entangling they're okay at, right? Like, they're fairly mobile, they have Heroic Leap and Charge. Entangling doesn't happen too frequently, and it's not very difficult for a warrior to quickly reposition. They're not tied down to anything like Consecration or Death and Decay. So overall, I think these changes are good. What I do like about this, and I hope you guys might share the same sentiment, is that they're not nerfing anything. They are simply buffing the underperforming classes, and they're not like nerfing Guardian Druid, they're not nerfing Paladin. So these are really good changes. Now I just really pray for one of those VDH reworks. So hopefully we'll get that in like 10.2 or 10.3 maybe sometime this expansion, because VDH feels really good right now to play, but its talent tree is fucking dog shit, is like the best way to put it. Anyways, I don't want to spend too long rambling in this video. Really quickly, I want to talk about this site that has kind of cropped up. A couple of the World First Guilds were advertising this during the race, and I started to kind of check it out, play with it, see what's going on. This is a really cool site. If you do u.gg/wow, it still is in beta, but what it's doing is something similar to Subcreation, is it's aggregating data from parses and logs and showing it to obviously like displaying it in like a nice format, very similar to Subcreation. Does a few things differently here and there. It's mostly aesthetic, but if I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't know how many, like, where do the parses come from? Is it from all logs, or is it from a certain subset of data like Subcreation does? But you can see here that some of the lowest DPS and keys that you're going to be seeing is actually the Protection Warrior. Not because it's in C tier, but if you look across the board, you are seeing this insanely like weird split, right? Like almost a 15, if not more, K gap between the top, which is VDH, and the bottom, which is Prot Paladin. Now, of course, you're seeing Prot Paladin at 60.5K here. A lot of them finish higher than this, especially at the top end. And you have to keep in mind that they bring a ton of utility for the season. They bring Dispel, they bring group DRs like Sack, Spell Warding, or Blessing of Protection. They bring off healing if needed. They bring infinite fucking interrupts through Avenger Shield and Divine Toll. They are kind of the ultimate package right now in terms of Mythic Plus. So them doing lower damage, I think, is relatively justifiable compared to something like a Brewmaster, who might have maybe less things in their kit, but used to provide all of that damage. But after the nerfs, we are now seeing them a little bit lower. These buffs might catch them up to VDH on average, but we'll see. But if we look here, BDK is actually only doing like 60k DPS on average, or 61.5, and the Warrior's at 62. So they're trying to bump these up a good bit to kind of get them around this like between 65k and 70k mark. So I'm completely fine with that. I'd like to see Warrior go up a little bit more since they are lacking in other departments. Same with BDK. But again, it's kind of like hard to tell because BDK is just so powerful. I feel a rant coming on, so I'm going to try to step away. But this site's really cool. I just wanted to kind of quickly showcase it. I might do a full breakdown on this site. I'll probably start looking into it when I can, but we'll see. But you can see tier list, you can see like talent builds, you can see how many runs are being shown for that, the popularity of the spec, HPS, like average HPS, average DPS as well. Just pretty cool site. You can kind of break it down by dungeons, Legacy of Tier. You're seeing like some of these data points will change based on the dungeon, but you can also group it all up. So really cool site, check it out. Let me know what you guys think about these changes below. What would you like to see going forward? I know Blizzard doesn't watch my content, but that's okay. I'd like to hear what you guys think about these upcoming buffs to some of these classes, and maybe is it enough to make you considering swapping to something else? All right, anyways, thanks so much, guys. I'll catch you all on the next one. Peace.